Today, Mitzvah Hashem, we're going to finish this beautiful perek, chapter 7, in Tractate Eruvin. One of the subjects we're going to discuss today, Mitzvah Hashem, is a gambler. What's the difference between someone who is a professional gambler, meaning who makes a living toward going to Las Vegas or Atlantic City and being there all the times, versus someone who just go there maybe once a year? If it's any different. Also, the whole treatment we have for testimony for those type of character, that's for sure just part of our discussion today. So we are soon going to our page, which is page 81. I would like to begin with the Mishnah at the very end of page 80b. The Mishnah said as follows: "Bakol מערבין ומשתתין חוץ מן המים ומן המלח." דברי רבי אליעזר. Rabbi Eliezer said we can make an eruv in everything excluding water and salt, which is, if you remember yesterday, we can use wine, oil, etc. for the eruv. Rabbi Yoshua omer kikar hu eruv, which means in order to make an eruv you have to have a full loaf of bread. And we have soon, you see in the Gemara, two chidushim. One, that we have to have kikar lechem shalem, a full loaf of bread. Some of the mefarshim say that that's specifically for Eruvei Chatzerot. The second chidush, you said afilu ma'afeh se'av u'prusa ein me'arvim ba. When you talk about loaf of bread, it has to be a full loaf of bread. And the Gemara later will explain it's called darchei shalom. People sometimes try to find a way to fight, sometimes over nothing. So one fellow said, I brought half and you brought more than me, or I brought less, etc. And they start have a conversation, maybe lead to a arguments. So therefore, as we said, there are two things: full bread and only bread. Now, v'hu prusai marvim ba. So, if it's just a slice of bread, we don't make a eruv. Why? So it's called derech bizayon. It's like you denigrating that. It's either shiraim, something that left over from last week. People don't like to use old bread. In short, people like to find a way to fight. So we want to make peace, that it shouldn't be like that. So again, what we see so far is Rabbi Eliezer said, regardless if it's a shitufei mavot or Eruvei Chatzerot, regardless if it's a joining courtyard or merging of the alleyway, anything but excluding water and salt. And later the Gemara explained that Rabbi Eliezer agreed that Eruvei Chatzerot needs to have bread. But then we concluded by saying kikar keisar v'hu shalem me'arvim bo. So Rashi said, harbe kikarot stalot, if you take a small bread and it's combined together kigrogeret, in a size of olive fig. With that we start on page 81, the daf of today. תניא חלזימנה בכל מערבין ומשתתפים חוץ מן המים והמלח. As we said earlier, everything excluding water and salt, you cannot make an eruv with water or salt. Amar Rabba להפוקם את רבי יהושע דאמר כיכר מלאחרינה לו. Rabba said that's to exclude what Rabbi Yoshua said, that it specifically applied to loaf of bread, but anything else you cannot make Eruvei Chatzerot. Rabbi Yoshua said that the only reason you make Eruvei Chatzerot has to be with the bread, and the idea, as we explained, is eiva, which means creating a friction. I brought full loaf of bread, you brought half, how come we share it equally, etc. The whole concept of eruv is sharing. So the moment we have some type of separation between people, that's something that we object is contrary to the whole concept of having eruv and eruv properly. Eitive Abaye asked a question: Bakol me'arvin eruvei chatzerot ובכל משתתפים שיתופי מעברות. He said, we can make a joining of a courtyard by everyone and merging an alleyway with everyone, meaning you can use regardless either bread or wine or other produce. ולא אמרו, and the sages did not say לערב בפת אלא בחצר בלבד. The only concept of using a bread in order to make an eruv, the sages tell us that that applies specifically to a courtyard but nothing else, which means the whole idea of eruvei chatzerot, you have to have solely apart, but if you talk about merging of an alleyway, you can make an eruv in everything else you wish to, which means the Gaon Yaakov tried to say that here's the end of that question, but the way that we read the Gemara, Abaye elaborate on that question. Man shamat lei de'amar pat ein midi achrini lo. Who is the one who said that specifically that's applied to bread, but nothing else? It has to be Rabbi Yoshua. Vekatani bakol, and we use the term bakol, which means bakol in simple understanding of the language, it's applied to anything. So what does that mean? Bakol that applies specifically to joining a courtyard, excluding water or salt. That's the way Rashi understands it. So the big question is why the Tana in the Mishnah repeats what we said earlier. The reason that he used the term bakol, it's like use the word bakol me'arvin, period, and then umishtatfin, excluding water and salt. So the additional of the word bakol, it come to teach us that it's all type of bread, including slice of bread. אלא אמר רבא בר חנא דאפוקא מדרבי יהושע דאמר שלמה אין פרוסה לא כמה שמלן בכל. So you think originally that that's applies solely for full loaf of bread but not a slice of bread. That's the bride come to tell us that a slice of bread is accepted as well, which means according to Rabbi Eliezer you can make eruvei chatzerot joining a courtyard in any type of bread, regardless if it's a full loaf of bread or part as a slice of bread. Upusam aitamalo, and a slice of bread, what's the reason that we said that it's invalid for Rabbi Yoshua to use for joining a courtyard? Amar Rabbi Yosei bar Shaul ben Shaul amar Rabbi mishum eva. As we said earlier, we try to avoid controversy, we try to avoid conflict, and if you start allowing people to bring slices of bread, especially in those days, we meaning the sages, when they build the whole concept of joining courtyard, they want to build a joining, a love and understanding and peace between people, and joining as one extended family. The moment you're allowing people to bring slice of bread, it creates some type of potential for friction, and therefore we want to avoid it. That's the way the Rif and Yerushalmi understand here the Gemara. Amar le Rab Acha bre Rava le Rav Ashi, ervu kulam befrusot mahu. But if every single person in our development, let's say we all join in a courtyard, and each and every one of us brought just his slice of bread, so if everyone did it, what's the problem? Is that okay by Rabbi Yoshua to go ahead and use it? Amar lei shema yachzor davar likilkulo. Let's face it. Today we are buddies, today we are friends, tomorrow we may have a problem. Meaning this week we may accept everyone's slice of bread, but guess what's going to happen next week? I decided, I'm not like all of you guys, I'm going to bring a full loaf of bread. And then the next thing you know, it's a big fight. So we make a decree to avoid all these problems. We make one person brought from his own, and he initiated that as representative to everyone else in the courtyard, and that's the way Maharam Rothenburg brought in Halacha, and that's the way we rule in Halacha. In Orach Chaim 366, they said it that you can go ahead, if you're an individual that represents everyone, you can go ahead and use one slice of bread. But if you have people that joining, so you either collect the fund that worth it, one slice of bread, or one representative give a zikayon to everyone else, give the right to everyone else, but it basically has to be a full bread in initio. And that's the way they follow the code. Now the Gemara brought several halachot in regards to what Rabbi Yoshua said. Amar Rabbi Yochanan ben Shaul, nitla hemena kedei chalata. If you have a bread that part of the bread was taken as hafrashat chala, as you know, that's a biblical precept that asks us to take a portion from the chala, from the loaf, and bring it to the Kohen. There is a specific measurement of that portion which we will discuss later. So the reason that he did it, it's called tikkun, to make it available for use. So therefore, if it made it as a tikkun, the whole dough cannot be used as long as you don't take apart and make hafrashat chala, tightening that bread. So that's following the book of Bamidbar, the book of Numbers, chapter 15, sentences 17 to 21. Because the Torah obligated us to go ahead and take part of our bread and give it to the Kohen, as long as he didn't do it, the code tells us that it's an issue to use it. You can use it by force of circumstance, but it's not the way that you should do it in initio. So they said kedei dimu'ah, which means he took in just that portion in order to allow us to go ahead and use that bread. Me'arvin lo ba. You can go ahead and use that part, that bread, even part of the bread is sliced, as in is not full loaf of bread. Ve'atanya kedei dimu'ah me'arvim lo ba, kedei chalatan me'arvim lo ba. We said in different braita that we cannot do that. You have to go, but by the measurement of more than the very basic type. So they say lokashia ha bechalat nachtom ha bechalat balavait. You have a strong differentiation between a bread that belongs to the business owner, like a bakery shop that baking those dough in order to sell them to public. So then it's an issue that people are very different in their manners. It's an exchange of money and values for their business part, versus if individual go ahead and make the challah in his own home, not for the sake of business. The dimua, it's a measurement of 1%, and the measurement of giving a challah, it's 1 of 24, or later is another opinion that is 1 of 48 measurement. So they said that none. We said in the Mishnah, Tractate Chala, chapter 2, Mishnah number 7. שיעור חלה 1 מ-24, העושה יישא לעצמו, ויישא למשתה בנו 1 מ-24. The measurement of bringing chala is 1 to 24. If someone made it for his personal occasion, like the marriage of his son, as long as he made it for his own, not for business purposes, but for his own personal use, so he can go ahead and use for tithe 1 of 24. However, נחתום שהוא עושה למכור בשוק, וכן האישה שעשתה למכור בשוק, 1 מ-48. If it's made for business, such as a bakery shop, that or a company that manufacturing bread, or in some cases, as we have in our congregation, a lady that come and does the afrashat challah and cook and bake the challah rolls for Shabbatot and Chagim. So therefore, in that case, they need to take 1 of 48, not 1 of 24. Even the Torah did not give us a clear measurement how much we need to take as a portion for the challah. That some rabbis say that even you take a measurement of a small tithe like seorah, it's sufficient. But the sages made a clear measurement for in order to avoid all kind of misunderstanding. And the key point is they want to show appreciation to the Kohanim, and by giving them a tithe, it has to have something that they carry a respect, meaning carry something that can be potentially used. So therefore, if people did it for personal needs, usually they made a small challah rolls. So therefore, the rabbis did not ask them to put more than 1/24. Versus a company that's manufacturing large challah rolls, large bread, and made it for the business purposes, the rabbi said that the measurement has to be 1/48. אמר רב חיסדא, תפרם בכיסם מערבין לו בה. Rav Chizda said, there are some artists. If you look at our kitchen with all of our specialists, there are some people involved with tremendous art ability. You see that they decorated the cakes, the cookies, etc., etc. Here they're talking about someone who sew all the breads. Most probably there is a certain way to do it. Maybe they sew it with some dough, etc., but make it look like it's full together. And nowadays we have machines that slice the bread and then they put it together in a bag, and you see the sign of slicing the bread, but it's basically the entire bread. In those days they speak about somehow sewing it so it appear externally, if you don't really touch it and look deeply, that it's unsliced and full bread. So the Gemara said, me'arvin lo ba, you can go ahead and use it. So they ask, v'atanya en me'arvin lo ba. We just said that if it's sliced, we cannot use it for eruv. So say lo kashya ha diadi tifra de lo yadi tifra. The difference is if you recognize that there is a slices of bread there, or he did not recognize. So here we don't have the obligation of lechem mishnes. You know, on Shabbat we have the obligation to have a double portion of bread, commemoration of manna from heaven, and therefore it has to be two challah bread together. But the only concept of using or not using slice of bread is because to avoid conflict, to avoid eva, to avoid problems. So if people don't recognize that there is a slice, we don't carry any problems. So the meaning is not contradiction between the two brightot. One speak about situation that people recognize that you slice it, the other is not. אמר רבי זרע אמר שמואל, מערבין בפת אורז ובפת דוחן. Rav Zera said in the name of Shmuel that you can use a rice bread, and you can use some type of barley bread, because as you study in the Hilchot Pesach, if you remember, we talk about the 5 species of bread that basically have a potential to be a chametz. Here is the same thing, that when it's come to using bread for the purpose of joining courtyard, it has to be one of the 5 species of bread. So here the big question is, if you're using the rice bread, you do not make hamutzi and you don't make the grace after meal, but as far as the making it as Eruvin Chatzorot is sufficient. So in other words, the way that some Acharonim understand, it's in inishi olechatchila, you should use one of the 5 species of bread. If not, you can use by force of circumstance also either rice bread or dochan bread. Dochan bread, what is they said in your translation? It's not one of the 5 species of grain, it's something else.
Yeah, they call it millet bread. But
millet bread,
yeah.
Okay, but it's something that is not 5 species of bread yet. For the Eruvin Chatzorot, we still can use it. אמר מר עוקבא לדידי מפרשה לימינא דמר שמואל בפת עורב מערבין ובפת דוחן אין מערבין. He differentiated between using a rice bread and meal bread, that you cannot do it, you cannot do the eruv, because Rabbi Yonatan said that people usually eat a rice bread but don't eat a meal bread, and therefore the Mishnah Berurah said in 208 what exactly it's the meaning of that bread. אמר רב חייא בר אבין אמר רב מערבין בפת עדשים. He said that you can use a pat adashim, which is a lentil bread. This is something that most probably in those days they use it. Eini. So the Gemara asks, is that possible that you use a lentil bread for eruv? It was this lentil bread that used in the days of Shmuel. What did he do? he took that lentil bread and what did he do? He threw it to his dog, right? And not just that, guess what happened to the dog? He didn't eat it, because even the dog does not eat it. Usually the Gemara said in Bava Kama 92 that their dogs eat whatever it's come to them. But here it was so bad, it shows that how bad is that lentil bread. So that how come you say that you can use it for Eruv? Says, Hahi dish'ar minim araya. דכתיב, ואתה קח לך חיטים מסורים פולדשים ודוחן וכוסמים וסידות עליך לחם. So it was not solely a lentil bread, it was a combination of lentil bread and others. So therefore, we bring this line from the book of Ezekiel, chapter 4, line sentence 9, saying that Hashem asked Ezekiel to take a combination of barley and grain and use it together as a bread. So you see here that that Ezekiel was asked to make a bread that it's not appropriate for people. The truth of the matter, if you look at Rashi here, and also the way that Tosfot brought it, there are a possibility that people eat even that type of bread. Unfortunately, our generation, today is a Memorial Day, so we recall all the brave people that helped during World War II. If you go back to that time in history and read the books and watch, it was people doing the Shoah that ate anything. When people are hungry, they can eat anything and everything. So therefore, it is possibility that people eat even that type of bread, as long as they have some caring of food. So they said, Rav Papa Amar, "Ahitz tluya betzorat ha'adam hava." So that bread that Shmuel threw to his dog, it was a combination of feces and bread. They said, "Dechtiv vehi b'glei tzorat ha'adam tegunen al eineihem," which means that it was a disgusting bread. Ezekiel used in chapter 4, that's applied to you shall bake it and human experiment in their side, which means that that's the way it's so disgusting that not using it. What does that mean when you use the term you shall eat as a barley cake? So by the way, uga, in nowadays they misconstrue the uga. Those days, uga was something that is going around, circle. And today's ma'afet tanur, it's not really the same term of cake. Amar Rav Chizda leshi'urim. Rav Chizda said that this verse means that he should eat it in a small measure, not as a satisfying meal. Rav Papa Amar arevata seorim velo arevat chitin. So Rav Papa said that you can use its preparation like preparation of barley bread, but not like a wheat bread, because that it's not coming in a nice way. It's the way that is the tzura, the way it's look, it's called by the way it's look and not by the content. Now the Mishnah, the next Mishnah, dealing with a situation of being part of the Eruv. נותן אדם מעל לחנווני ולנחתום כדי שיזכה לו בעירוב. A person can bring a coin to the store owner. In those days it was like a grocery store, a store that someone is there and he basically live in that alleyway. So the Chenvani, the store owner, has a tremendous interest to participate in that. Why? He wants to be part of the joining courtyard and merging alleyway, because eventually he collected the fund for that bread. Now the issue is, by halacha, kesef lo koneh, in that sense, that you cannot purchase it, you need to partake of that eruv. So basically they said, noten adam ma'ala chenvani. So a person can may give a ma'ah, which is a coin, to the owner of the grocery store, velanachtom, or the baker, כדי שיזכה לו בעירוב. If they live in the same alleyway of the court, so the grocery store owner or the baker will confer him upon him possessions of wine or bread for a merging of the alleyway and Eruv. if other residents come to them to purchase those products for that purpose. That's דברי רבי אליעזר, that's the idea of Rabbi Eliezer. חכמים אומרים, לא זכו מעותיו. The sages said, his money did not confer possession on him, because it transfer money alone, and it's not valid to do that acquisition. 81b, ומודים בשאר כל אדם שזכו לו מעותיו. And the sages agree that if it's applied to everyone else, that in that case, that if one gave the money for food, for an Eruv, his money confer possession upon him. Because Rashi explained that usually people don't sell those loaves of bread, only if the owner of the grocery store. So if he give you that coin, he just make him as a shaliach, as an emissary to purchase for him. Why? שאין מערבין לאדם אלא מדעתו. That's important. That in order to make the Eruv valid, you need to have the full mindset, the full confirmation of the person who initiated that. In other words, I cannot make an Eruv for any one of you guys if you did not give me the authority, if you not confirm me to go ahead and do it for you. So in other words, you need to have the gmirut dat, your mindset, to agree upon that. אמר רבי יהודה מלמד הורים אומרים בעירובי תחומין, אבל בעירובי חצרות מערבין לדעתו ושלא לדעתו. He says that's only apply when you have a joining of courtyard. So because joining of courtyard, it turned to be a loss. It's involved with debt. And because if you joining Eiruvin Tchumin, joining on the limit of Shabbat, because let's face it, if you need to go in a certain way, you can go one direction for 2,000 amma, and then basically what happened? You lost the other. So even you make 1,000 or whatever it is in one side, you automatically lost the potential from that point of departure to go the opposite way. So because it's involved in some type of loss, therefore you have to have a full consent of everyone, because some people may disagree to that arrangement. However, in joining on a courtyard, that it's a convenience for people to carry in his yard, and is no such a loss in any form. מערבין לדעתו שלא לדעתו. You can make regardless if a person have the full consent or not. לפי שזכין לאדם שלא בפניו ואין דחבין לאדם שלא בפניו. That you can do something that involves good with a person without his consent, okay? But you cannot do something that may involve in loss without the full consent of a person. So, my ta'amad Rabbi Eliezer. So, how Rabbi Eliezer explained that one person can have part of the Eruv? Ha lo mashach. So he basically didn't make kinyan meshicha, he didn't move it, and by using a coin, it's not sufficient to make it as a applicable Eruv. אמר רב נחמן בר אבא בר אבא, הוא עשהו רבי אליעזר כארבעה פרקים בשנה. He made it like a 4 season of the year. That none, this is it's a משנה in חולין 83. בארבעה פרקים אלו משחיתין את הטבח בעל כורחו. There are 4 seasons in a year that we force the butcher to slaughter certain animals in order to give to those who already paid him. ואפילו שור שווה 1,000 דינר ואני לוקח אלא דינר אחד כופין אותו לשחוט. Even imagine that just in language of exaggeration that the ox worth $10,000 and he basically needs to bring only $50 to someone, you still force him to slaughter that ox. Why? So here they apply to certain seasons, which is the first day of the festival of Passover, the eve of Shavuot, the eve of first day of Passover, the eve of Shavuot, the eve of the Rosh Hashanah, and the eve of Shmini Atzeret. And Rashi said also it's a eve of Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. So he said that people needs it. So even that it's a very small amount needed for that person. לפיכך אם מת ללוקח. So if it happens during that process the ox passed, so who lost? So the one who get the money, he basically lost. Why? Because he already purchased with that money the ox, so he is basically already did his part, and from now on until he serve him is the obligation of the fellow that is being recipient of that money. So the Gemara asked, is that true? Metra lokeach halo mashach. So why that person is have the loss? He didn't follow the kinyan meshicha, which is the buying with money. It's not enough. You need to have a physical moving in order to make it happen, and money cannot make it as a kinyan. So Amar Rav Huna respond beshem mashach. Yes, he did it after doing that form of kinyan. So why it's specific in those days? Only in those eve of holidays, others not. לפיכך אם מת למוכר המאי המשך. He basically did that. אמר רב שמואל בר יצחק לעולם בשלו משך. You have to say that he didn't, the one who received that ox, he didn't follow that kinyan, he didn't משך חכמי עסקינן בשזיקה לו על ידי אחר, that he basically acquired by using another fellow. Therefore בארבעה פרקים אלו דזכותי לו. Therefore in this specific 4 season that it's a special when it is for his benefit, as everyone wishes to buy meat on these days, zachin lo shelo befanav. So one may act for him benefit in his absence, and the acquisition is valid. Bishar yomot hachamad dechovu lo. However, with regards to other years, the other days of the year, since it's a chov, it's a debt for him, and chavin lo ela shebefanav, one may act to his disadvantage only in his present. ורב אילה אמר רבי יוחנן בארבעה פרקים אלו לימוד חכמים דבריהם על דברי תורה, אמר רבי יוחנן דבר תורה מעות קונות. The 4 different seasons the sages made their statement, because Rabbi Yochanan said by Torah law the payment of money is effective act of acquisition which acquires movable property. So meaning if you're using this type of a coin, it's basically considering as acquiring, and you can transfer the ownership by doing so. So why we say that you have to have kinyan meshicha, you have to acquisition of pooling, not monetary payment. So we put a decree that he may say to him, your wheat was burned in the upper story of my house and you have lost everything. So the Torah said that if once the buyer pays, he owns the merchandise, whatever is located. And the sages agreed with all the other people and gave the money for food for the Eruv. So his money confer upon him. So who is included among all these people? Amarav Balabai, he says the homeowner, not the merchant. So he is considering Sh'ar Kol Adam. V'chen Amar Shmuel Balabait. And also Shmuel said that's apply to the homeowner. אמר שמואל לא שנו אלא נחתום, אבל בעל הבית קונה. Shmuel said that that's only apply to the baker, but the homeowner may acquire the food on behalf of another person. ואמר שמואל לא שנו אלא מעה, אבל כלי קונה. Shmuel said that that's apply only in the case where he gave him a coin, but if he gave him a utensil, he acquires the food, the Eruv, by mode of acquisition known as exchange. ואמר שמואל לשמואל, אמר לו זכר לי, אבל אמר ערב לי שליח שווה וקנה. So Shmuel said that that's apply only if he asked him to do what? To confer possession upon me. But if he said establish an Eruv on my behalf, so that's he appointed him as an agent, and therefore the Eruv is acquired by means of his agency. אמר רב יהודה במה דברים אמורים. So now we brought to the final הלכה. אמר רב יהודה אמר שמואל הלכה כרב יהודה ולא עוד אלא כל מקום שנה רב יהודה בעירובין הלכה כמותו. So we said that it's not just that, but in any place that Rav Yehuda mentioned Eruvin, so we follow halacha according to him. So in other words, anything that you need da'at, you need gmirut da'at, you need understanding, that's applied to Eruvei Tchumim, but not Eruvei Chatzerot. But in general, he says that whatever, but any place where Rav Yehuda taught the halacha with regard to Eruvin, the halacha is accordance with his opinion. Amar le Rav Chana Bagdata, so it's the name of Baghdad in Iraq nowadays. In those days it was in Babylon. Le Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel afilu b'mavoi shenitlu korotav lechayav. That's apply also to the alleyway that they took the doorpost or the crow's beams. Amar le b'Eruvin amarti lach velo b'mchitzot. I said it to you only apply to Eruvin, but not in regard to partition. אמר לרבה חברי דרבה לרבשי הלכה מכלל דפליגי. If you say that that's the halacha, it means that there is a dispute. So the way the Gemara said that Rabbi Yehuda just tried to elaborate the word, not to disagree with him. ואמר רבי יהושע לוי כל מה שאמר רבי יהודה מתי במה במשנתנו אינו אלא לפרש דברי חכמים. So usually these משניות that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi put together, whatever use the term matai, he just wants to crystallize, he wants to elaborate a certain point of the sages or interpret it. So Tosfot said that that's come to make an exclusion to that specific braito. ולא פליגה, you tell me that it's not a disputation, ואנה נתנן התווספו עליהם מוסיף ומזכה וצריך להודיע. So, but we learned earlier, if you remember the previous page, that if the new tenant, new residents join the alleyway, so you need to get their consent, which means that in Eruvei Chatzerot, in joining courtyard, you do need to announce. You do need to have a gmirut da'at agreement of everyone. So they said hatam bechatzer shel shnei mevorot. Here it applied to a courtyard that is between two alleyway. So in that case, they can use one alleyway but not the other, which means that it's that joining is not full right, full acquiring of right, and therefore we say that you cannot make en chavin le'adam shelo befanav. You cannot do it without the person full consent being there. ואמר רב שיזבי אמר רב חיסדא, זאת אומרת, חלוקין עליו דברי חבריו על רבי יהודה, which means that the sages disagree with רבי יהודה. So it's a מחלוקת ראשונים, a disputation among the sages, if you have a courtyard within this alleyway, if you can make it in both or not, which again, it's not in the scope of the discussion today. But here the Gemara responded and said, Ela, it means it's lashon kasha. It's not come to interpret it. It's just come to elaborate, to explain. 82. Gavra karamit. You bringing one amora against other, which means from Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi on the word of Shmuel. Mar Shmuel that said that halacha followed the Rabbi Yehuda. Savar plige. He hold that the sages disagree with Rabbi Yehuda. Umar savar lo plige. One say that they have not a disagreement. גופה, אמר רבי יהושע בן לוי, כל מקום שאמר רבי יהודה, אימתי, במה, במשנתנו, אינו, אלא לפרש דברי חכמים. So he said in general rule that every time we say the word ematai, Rabbi Yehuda meant he just want to interpret it and explain the word of the sages. Rabbi Yochanan אמר, ematai לפרש, במה לחלוק. This is a different Hebrew philological term. If you use the terminology of a word ematai, it's according to Rabbi Yochanan interpretation. When you use the word bameh, it means that it's a disagreement. So it means that according to both opinions, when you use the term ematai, it's basically interpretation. Ve'ematai lefareshu. So when you use the ematai in order to interpret it, va'atnan, who is learning the Mishnah in Sanhedrin, page 24b. Velu and Apsulim. Here are the list of people that we are not accept for the Bet Din. So this is a rabbinic idea, that rabbinic rules, that there are certain people who are invalid for a testimony in a Bet Din. The Torah said in the book of Shmot, in Exodus chapter 23, Al tashed et chaim rasha li'oded Hamas. Do not join with a wicked person to be a false witnesses. So the Gemara said that people who are wicked are basically invalid to bear a testimony. So therefore, it's like in a way, like a thieves, like a robbers, those people. Why? So the hamesachek bekubiya, someone who play with a kubiya, is like those balls that have different numbers.
Dice.
Dice, thank you. So one who play with dice. So there are two reasons. What's the reason that the sages said Isu de Rabbanan, that is forbidden by rabbinic? One is a famous Rashi in Rosh Hashanah. The Rashi said that it's ma'aseh gzela, chotef, that it's like some act of taking indirectly, forcefully money from someone else. Another reason, he says, that it's asmachta. What is asmachta? So in short, let's say Gil and I, or David and I, putting money on a table. So each of us puts, let's say, $10 on a table. I'm not a gambler, thank God. But let's say each person puts some money on the table. So the idea is, when I put my, let's say, $50, okay? Let's say I put $50 on the table, what I have in my mind? In my mind I have that at least I get my money back. Because if everyone knows for sure he's not going to get his money back, he'll not put that money on the table. So the whole concept of asmachta, it has to be one reason that you don't have a normal transaction between two parties, which means you don't buy something in exchange of paying money. So that's one issue. Another issue is that the mindset of everyone is, at least I want to get my money back. So therefore, the one who collect that money, it's not a halachically correct or fair transactions between two parties. So it's called asmachta. And they said basically the problem with that is that those people who receive that money doesn't have the proper concept of money. So we are you see here soon umalve beribit, someone who lend money for interest. Umafrichei yonim, in those days it was like taking a dove and scented different people, and then you see the result. Whoever win gets something. So it's called ribit de Rabbanan. It's lo ktsutza in the malve beribit, but malve beribit is the interest that the Gemara said in Bava Metzia in 75, that it's still considering him as a lending for interest. And the Mafrichei Yonim, they said that it's a two-way. One is the way Rashi said it, another one that you basically train those doves and go and collect something from someone else. Basically you train those dove to go and fly and take something from someone else and take it to you, which is a gezel de Rabbanan. It's some type of robbery by the rabbinic rules. Ve'socharei shvi'it is a sabbatical year that people needs to give away their land, and instead people go ahead and selling those merchandise, which is a violation of the law. So even it's a big issue what exactly involved here, and it's a rabbinic in the sense of selling it, because it's a big question what exactly involved in Kedushat Shvi'it and how they do it, etc., etc., etc. But basically, all of that, the wrap up by the idea that people who does that, you cannot trust them in a court to bear a witness. אמר רבי יהודה, אימתי, בזמן שאין לו אומנות אלא היא. If he is, the only thing he does in life is to go and gamble, which means since that guy collecting that money, he doesn't have the proper appreciation, he does not value that money, because Rashi said, "She'eno asuk b'yishivo shel olam," who is not involving with inhabitants the world. What he does all day is just playing different thing and gaining money, cash. So he doesn't have the concept of appreciation of money, because that guy can be overnight get $500,000 and overnight lose his pants. So therefore, he doesn't have the proper appreciation of money. So and he's not dealing with the normal inhabitants of the world of transactions between two parties. So we, therefore, are very cautious to take this guy as a testimony in a court for monetary issue in particular, because he doesn't conceptualize money properly, or because he is not occupied in a proper trade. אבל יש לו אומנות שלא יהיה הרי זה כשר. But the opinion said here, but if he has other profession, he go there just sporadically. So therefore, we still hold him by this opinion that he will be valid to give a testimony. ותניא עלה בברייתא, והחכמים אומרים בין שאין לו אמנות אלא היא, ובין שיש לו אמנות שלא היא, הרי זה פסול. The sage says regardless, he is not valid to be part of this. Witnesses at the court. I remember one time years back, in my childhood, I liked to go with my dad to officiate wedding. One time, was those days, sometimes he had 2 weddings a day or 3 weddings a day. One wedding, I remember as a little child, that the guy came and he said to my dad that that fellow is a gambler. And my father said, is that possible? He's a Shabbat observant. And they said yes. So my father asked him, and he said yes. So my father said, I'm sorry, I cannot let you sign the ketubah. He asked for someone else. Anyway, so here it said that that brother that disagreed with Rabbi Yehuda, the Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rabbi Tarfoni, that's Rabbi Yehuda that he received that tradition from Rabbi Tarfon, the Tanya. Now we deal with the law of Nazirite. אמר רבי יהודה משום רבי טרפון, למה אין אחד מהם נזיר, לפי שנזירות אלא להפלאה? עלמא כיוון דמספקתו לנזיר לא נזיר, לא משעבדי נפשי. הכנה מכיוון דלא ידעי, קני לא קני, לא גמרו מקני. So imagine, it's very similar to asmachta. Yeah, you're two people walking in the street. Let's say Elliot and Lowry walking in the street. And they're walking in the street and they see a weird person. In those days, nowadays forget it, but in those days you see a fellow have a long hair. Oh, so now they're talking about that guy. So Elliot said to Larry, look, what do you think, he is a mourner or he is a Nazirite? Oh, they start fighting. Oh, I think he's a mourner. I think he's Nazirite. And then they start betting. He says, you know what, we bet over so and so and so and so. Let's say, if he's a Nazirite, I want that. They start making those type of things. So he says, if he's a Nazirite, I'll be a Nazirite, right? And the other guy said, but if the other guy is Nazirite, I'll be Nazirite. So now the big question is that something that is just a game, or something that we take their word and basically they make themselves Nazirite? So they use the word hafla'ah. So hafla'ah meaning you have to differentiate between something that was come out of debate versus a person that make a very clear, decisive statement. So they said, because it's not sure, you don't know where he will win and acquire the money, or wherever he will lose and not acquire. So therefore, lo gamaru makne, he does not fully transfer ownership of the money in which he pays to other. Which means that the one who gains from these games receive money that was not wholeheartedly given to him. So he is therefore like a robber, and at least by the rabbinic level, which disqualifies him for giving the testimony. And it's in that sense, it's very similar to the asmachta of the gambler. It's the same mindset. Hadran alachalo. Now we're going to a practical halachot. But basically, you see in conclusion that asmachta lo kona, and those sages that Rabbi Yehuda disagree and come to interpret it, So he basically said, if he have another profession, fine. If he doesn't have another profession, he is not kasher, he is not valid. In practical halachot, I would like to start with Hapsulin Le'edut. The Tur followed the code of Jewish law, Choshen Mishpat, chapter 34. They give us the various reasons for disqualifying a person from giving testimony. Some simple is some people are disqualified by being relatives, like when we officiate a wedding, we can take immediate family members. But we have other issues, which is people that we're considering some type of wicked or some category of criminals. So the following people are disqualified from giving testimony because of their credibility is suspect. Moneylenders for interest, pigeon racer, traders in a sabbatical year produce, gambler if they have no other occupation. The Rambam said that he disqualified gamblers even if only a small portion of their income is for dice playing. In other words, they're just going to the mall and playing a little bit with the machine. According to the Rambam, it's already make them disqualified. While others disqualify them only if the entire livelihood is based on gambling, and that's the Tur in Choshen Mishpat 34. Another important halacha, it's the Shi'ur Chala. This is the Shulchan Aruch Yoreh De'ah 322. By Torah law, there is no fixed measure for challah, for the challah bread. Nevertheless, the sages determined that it must constitute 1/24 of the dough, and the tazeh they were lenient with regard to a baker due to the potential loss or due to the thickness of his dough. That's the Rambam in Chod Bikurim chapter 5. Consequently, they require him to separate only 48 of his dough. We don't want people to lose their business. We differentiate, the Rosh said, if the loaf missing a piece, the size of a portion that is generally removed as Beker Challah, it may still use as an Eruv. It's applied even if the amount has not been removed as Challah, since the neighbors will think that the missing part is Challah and no animosity result will created. We said, but if one connected that pieces of a wooden chip, so it's it seems inconspicuous, so the loaf may be used. We ask about the rice, lentil, and millet bread. We said that that's not something that we say amotzi. We just said shehakol. So an eruv may be prepared with the rice bread. That's the Shmuel's opinion. And with the lentil bread, that's the Rav. But not with the millet bread. That's the Mar Ukva, name Shmuel. If you remember, we said that there's a different category of bread that we can use. The last halacha I would like to share with you today is the idea of gmirut da'at, which means that one may establish an eruv for a person only if he is fully knowledge. So one may establish a joining for Shabbat boundaries. For someone only with his knowledge, that's Shulchan Aruch 4:14. But there is no need to inform the people on whose behalf the joining of courtyard, the Eiruvin Chatzerot, is established because it is regarded as a benefit for them. So that's the Rabbi Yehuda. The halacha applies to a merging of alleyway as well. So again, here we differentiate between Eruvei Tchumim and Eruvei Chatzerot Shilufei Mevoot. Eruvei Tchumim, you need the Gmirat Da'at. Shilufei Chatzerot and Eruvei Chatzerot Shilufei Mevoot, merging alleyway and joining a courtyard, since they benefit from that, you do not need to have their consent.
Smach
Hashem.